chug, 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 chug,
Welcome back to the Wizard Staff. I'm your host, Guy.
And I'm Blake.
And for the very, very first time, Blake and I are sitting right next to each other doing a podcast instead of our normal routine where we are Skyping each other 2 or 3 states away.
Yeah, I can touch you if I want to.
Oh, don't do that.
I'm going to start getting real handsy.
Oh, God.
No.
I already regret this. So Blake's visiting me, and so that means that we are going to be doing a few episodes together in person, and we hope that you guys enjoy what we have to put out for you. So Blake, cheers. So if you're listening to this, War of the Spark is out at this time. Blake and I are going to a pre-release tomorrow, and we are doing our War of the Spark Planeswalker review for you today, and then we will also have a more dedicated to the other cards in the set episode after this.
Yeah, it's going to be, the first part is Planeswalkers, and the second part will be legendary creatures and other cards we find notable.
All right, so for today, for War of the Spark, there are 36 new Planeswalkers. This set is considered to be a Planeswalker theme, obviously, since normally per set there's only 3 to 4 Planeswalkers. There are 20 uncommon Planeswalkers that have a minus loyalty ability, 13 rares that have an additional plus and a minus loyalty ability, and then 4 mythic rares that have 3 additional abilities. And on all of these Planeswalkers, there is also a static ability or a triggered ability. So for the set War of the Spark, this is the return of Proliferate, which allows you to choose any number of permanents in our players, then give each another counter of that kind they already have. So this mechanic has been pretty essential when it comes to Super Friends decks, which is an EDH deck that focuses around Planeswalkers, since you're trying to add additional loyalty counters to your Planeswalkers. So if you were planning to build an Atraxa deck at this point, she spiked from $15 to $50+ around when this was announced.
I feel like she's just only become even more popular now that she's relevant again.
Right. All right, so if you're listening and you don't know what a Planeswalker is, we're going to go over that real quick. So a Planeswalker is a character in MTG that is able to travel between the different planes.
Yeah, they're like dimensions.
Right, so Magic is a multiverse that exists, and the only people that can travel between them are Planeswalkers. The thing that connects all the multiverses together is the mana system, so like red, blue, green, black, white. And so Planeswalkers are people that are like 1 in a million. They've had something tragic happen to them that allows them to like ignite the spark, which allows them to then travel throughout planes. And they're essentially the Avengers of the Magic the Gathering universe. All right. So in this set, each Planeswalker has either an ally creature or spell that connects with them. But for the sake of this video, we are only going to be talking about the Planeswalkers and leave some of those more important cards to when it comes to the War of the Spark review. So, the reason that there are 36 Planeswalkers in this set is because Nicol Bolas, one of the big bads of MTG, has been working over the last few years to amass an army of the dead and harness the power of all other Planeswalkers by taking their sparks so he can become the most powerful being and achieve godlike status using the Elder spell, which is a spell that he found while doing some research. And so the last 2 sets, Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance, have been focused on Ravnica, and now this set, War of the Spark, ends with Nicol Bolas bringing his army to Ravnica, and then Planeswalkers show up to try and take down Nicol Bolas, since he's been pretty elusive over the last years. So, not all the Planeswalkers that are in this set, not all Planeswalkers that are on Ravnica during this set are actually getting cards. So, one of the notable ones to mention is that Dak Faden.
Rip.
Yeah, who died in the War of the Spark trailer. He did not get a new card, and so there's more than just the 36. So it kind of goes to show that more than the 36 that we are going to be talking about today showed up on Ravnica to take down Nicol Bolas, which just kind of speaks to how big of a threat that he is right now.
Yeah, people are actually dying.
This is something that actually matters. It's been a MTG story that's been going on for the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so throughout this video, we will speak to some of that lore that we don't often leave out when we talk about things, just because it adds, a little more flavor and
we're becoming more knowledgeable. I feel like we started off just knowing like the function of cards, and now we're like, okay, maybe we should actually like learn the lore of cards because they actually translate into their function.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's just cooler because then when you see those cards in person, they give it a whole new meaning.
A whole new world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so a couple terms to know beforehand as we are talking about the Planeswalkers and the lore. There is the Gatewatch, who is considered like the Justice League of the multiverse. That consists of the 5 main Planeswalkers: Jace, Ajani, Liliana, Gideon, and Chandra. And there have been a few more who have been added. I know that Teferi was recently added.
Mm-hmm.
Nissa was on the Gatewatch, but broke her pact after altercations with the Eldrazi.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Immortal Sun is a card that we've talked about how it stops Planeswalkers from using their loyalty abilities. But in the multiverse of Magic, it's an artifact that stops Planeswalkers from being able to planeswalk through the multiverse. And that's very important.
Yeah, they're kind of stuck wherever they're at.
Correct. All right. So without further ado, we're going to get into the 37 new Planeswalkers.
Oh boy, here we go.
All right, and we're going to start off by doing this in sort of an order of how the story flows. So we're not just kind of jumping around when we need to interject with that as well. All right, so first we got Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge, who is the Buy a Box promo. He's 4 blue and a black. He comes in with 5 loyalty, and he has the static ability: creatures and planeswalker spells you cast have affinity for artifacts. So they cost 1 colorless less to cast for each artifact that is on the field. +2, Tezzeret deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of artifacts you control. You gain X life. -3, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. -8, exile the top 10 cards of your library. Put all artifacts from among them onto the battlefield. So let's all take a moment of silence for the fucking suckers who didn't have Blightsteel Colossus. Yeah.
Oh, it spiked so much, didn't it?
Yeah, Blightsteel Colossus, who is kind of our mascot of
this podcast.
Yeah, he tripled in price. So he was around $30. I think he's sitting at close to 80 right now.
I think it's settled down a little bit less than that. It's like 60.
Right.
65.
And so it nearly tripled in price because Tezzeret has the affinity for artifacts, which is a pretty broken mechanic. We almost never thought we would see it again just after.
It's pretty ballsy.
Yeah.
Watsy to be like, hey, remember that thing that like busted an entire format for a while? Like, let's just put it on this one card.
Right. And I think that's okay, though, because this is the Buy Box promo. It's not just a card that everyone's going to be able to get real quick.
I think a lot of people are going to want it, though.
Well, yeah, definitely a lot of people. And so a lot of cards ended up becoming like higher in price because of this. I do think, Planeswalkers aren't always the best in EDH, but this one I feel like is pretty good for the affinity for artifacts and his +2, where, you know, he's doing X damage for each artifact that's on the field to each opponent. And so when you have 3 other opponents, and you then, let's say you have 4 artifacts, you deal 4 damage to each one of your opponents, you then gain 12 life, which is, you know, pretty significant.
Yeah, like honestly, all 3 of these abilities are pretty good. So that's a good Planeswalker right there. And then the reason we're actually doing this review is because the Planeswalkers have static abilities. Because otherwise, if they didn't have static abilities, I'd have talked to you and be like, we're not doing this review. We're going to do like top 5 Planeswalkers. But like, because they have static abilities, we're going to go through each of these.
Oh, I totally forgot to mention it. But so the reason why that these Planeswalkers have static abilities is because it's supposed to represent the spark. So it's this flavor that's been added. I don't think we're ever going to see this again afterwards.
I don't think so.
And I also don't think we'll probably see Planeswalkers with just minus abilities. Alright, so to get into a little of the lore around Tezzeret, because Tezzeret's considered to be probably the secondary antagonist of this storyline.
Yeah, he's like an agent of Bolas. That's like one of his card names.
Right. So he's been working for Nicol Bolas, the big bad, for quite a while. And he built the Planar Bridge back in Kaladesh, which is a portal that allows you to transfer non-living material through the planes of the multiverse. So similar to how Planeswalkers are able to walk between the dimensions, he can then send things that are not alive through this like portal. And so Tezzeret uses the Planar Bridge to bring an army of the dead that Nicol Bolas has on Amonkhet, another plane that we visited recently, to invade Ravnica.
Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to do the next card. And it's going to be Ral Storm Conduit. It is 2 blue-red for loyalty. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Ral deals 1 damage to target opponent or Planeswalker. +1, scry 1. -2, when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So I'm only really interested here for the static ability where you can do a bunch of shenanigans where, you know, it's great for storm decks, and there are certain cards that just repeatedly copy themselves and lead you to win. So it's probably one of the strongest Planeswalkers of this set.
Right. This card has been... a lot of people have talked about different ways that they're going to be able to break standard with infinite loops. Some of these Planeswalkers are definitely... Tezzeret and Ral are 2 good ones to start on just because they really show how powerful some of these Planeswalkers are.
Not everyone can be super strong.
Right. And so Ral also has a little bit of additional lore to go with him. So we were under the impression that Ral was also working for Nicol Bolas, but at the last second, Ral turns on Bolas as Bolas begins to initiate his plans and call for all the Planeswalkers to come to Ravnica and fight Bolas. Though unknown to Ral, Bolas brings the Immortal Sun, which we talked about earlier, onto Ravnica and gives it to one of his more loyal minions, Dovin. And so now Ral has called all these Planeswalkers to say, let's take down Nicol Bolas. But Nicol Bolas was 1 step ahead of them and brought the Immortal Sun and is now keeping everyone else on Ravnica. So now they're stuck there and it's either do or die.
Yeah, checkmate, kind of.
Right. We're in the end game now.
God damn it.
That's very
it
fitting.
Does work. I'm mad at you.
Well, also Doctor Strange looks a lot like Ral.
He does.
Yeah, it's very fitting. All right, next we got Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. 1 blue, comes in with 4 loyalty. His static ability is if you withdraw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. So +1. Target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard, draw a card. -8, draw 7 cards, then if your library has no cards in it, you win the game. I was super hyped for this, and I don't feel like they disappointed me. This is another good Laboratory Maniac, but for my Jace deck, it mills itself, and it can be then really important to put those cards into the graveyard to then recast with the other Jace Wielder of Mysteries ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like most people have been talking about how it's basically another Lab Man. How, like, cards that win with Lab Man, this is just, like, another consistency piece that they're going to use. Because I'm going to do it. I'm going to be one of those people.
Right. And it does cost one more blue than Lab Maniac.
Yeah, but I feel like people will still make it work. I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like it's doable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited for this one. Yeah. And the next one we have is Vraska, Swarm's Eminence. 2, then it's the hybrid black Golgari. 5 loyalty. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals damage to a player or planeswalker, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. And then the -2 is create a 1/1 black assassin creature token with Death Touch, and whenever this creature deals damage to a planeswalker, destroy that planeswalker. I mean, it kind of fits all the other Vraskas, where it's like making things that can really kill players or other creatures. I don't know. Compared to all the other ones, this is like 1 static and only 1 activated, so I'm not really impressed.
Yeah, it's one of the it's the first uncommon that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If you know that this is a card you could run and you have friends that are going to be playing Super Friends decks, then I think this is fine because, you know, you create ways to kill planeswalkers a little quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like EDH really struggles with actually killing planeswalkers. It's very good at killing creatures, but that's maybe a different topic for another time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, more lore.
Mm-hmm.
Tension has been building between Vraska and Jace over the past couple sets, and I already know that kind of sounds like a little fan fiction going on. But so Vraska has been a follower to Nicol Bolas, and he sent her out to search for the Immortal Sun. Jace happened to be with her at the time, and he was kind of like pretending not to be who he was so he could follow her and ultimately try and convince her to see what Nicol Bolas is trying to do and realize that he's a bad guy. And so they make it to the Immortal Sun and they find it together, and Vraska then kind of says, oh, you know what, you're right, Jace. But shortly after this realization, Tezzeret, the guy we talked about at the very beginning, shows up and he takes the Immortal Sun with him to Nicol Bolas. So, in order to try and get a little closer to Nicol Bolas and be able to know what they're going up against, Jace wipes Vraska's memory so that she can then go to Tezzeret and Bolas, and Jace will restore her memories the next time that they meet together. So, yeah.
And then they could be best of friends again.
Well, I'm pretty sure they're going to be more like lovers.
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
So now that they're back on Ravnica together, they're working to take down Bolas. And so they team up with Ral to start a plan that was put to work by Niv Mizzet, the past leader of the Izzet Guild, who we will talk about in our second part. Because he's not a planeswalker.
No.
As much as people have wanted him to be.
No. He got a legendary creature. We'll talk about him soon. Like, he's fine. Yeah. Got a new character, though.
Oh, shit, it is my turn.
Yeah, how much wine have you had?
The Wanderer. So, 3 white, 5 loyalty. Prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to you and other permanents you control. -2, exile target creature with power 4 or greater. So this has been one of the more mysterious cards of this set, since this is a new planeswalker that we have not seen before, and they have talked about how it is not supposed to be a character in disguise that we know of. So it's not one of the planeswalkers that we have seen that didn't make it in the set. So it's a completely new planeswalker. So it could be a past character that we have seen in creature form, but it's not a different Planeswalker.
Oh, I didn't realize the technicality in that language.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And what we do know about this Planeswalker, though, the Wanderer, is that because we don't even know if it's a man or woman or
Whoever.
however they identify, but we do know that they are a very powerful Planeswalker who can Planeswalk multiple times much quicker than any other Planeswalker, who normally if you Planeswalk, it takes you a little time to like recharge, but the Wanderer can apparently do it much quicker than most others cannot.
Alright. Yeah. Like, I like it. I hope that they're in more future sets. Like, cause again, it's like one of those like Planeswalkers that's only one activated ability and static, so I'm not that impressed. So yeah, I hope I see them more.
I'm sure that there will be some kind of either prelude set that might, talk about who the Wanderer is, or we might even see them in, Modern Horizons.
Yeah. Oh. All right, so here we go. Big Daddy Karn. We got Karn, the Great Creator. He is 4 colorless, 5 loyalty. Activated abilities of artifacts your opponent's control can't be activated. The +1 is until your next turn, up to 1 target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness, each equal to its converted mana cost. -2, you may choose an artifact card you own from outside the game or in exile, reveal that card, and add it to your hand. So I want to talk about the static real fast.
Tron. Fuck it up. All right, go.
Yeah. Yeah, like the activated ability is like pretty good. Like, I don't know if you've ever played against Stony Silence, but like I run Stony Silence in one of my decks, and it just like screws people's mana rocks and it screws their equipment, and it really hinders a majority of decks. And like, if that's what you're doing, that's great. And even if you have your own artifacts, you're not screwing yourself over and shooting yourself in the foot, so that's pretty good too. I'm not as interested in like the activated abilities, like the -2. Yeah, you can pull Mycosynth Lattice, but not really because of commander rules. Like, yeah.
Right. So the -2, you may choose an artifact card you own from outside the game or in exile, reveal that card and add it to your hand. So unless if you're able to exile Mycosynth Lattice and then you can pull it back to your hand, if you have a consistent way of doing that, then I think that's good. But in EDH, there is no such thing as a sideboard, which is what it refers to when you say pull a card from outside of the game or in exile.
Mm-hmm.
The house rule is that you have to talk to kind of like your play group about it, but most of the time it's kind of a no-go. So the -2 is a lot less relevant, but I think the static ability is really important here.
Yeah. Similar to Tezzeret, they're yet to print like a really bad Karn.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's certain Planeswalkers that WotC really likes to make sure that they're good, and Karn's one of them.
Karn, Jace.
Yeah.
Oh, I think no. Karn is not part of the Gatewatch. I'll take that back.
I don't think he is.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on. Kasmina, Enigmatic Mentor. That was a really hard word to say. She's also a new character. She is 3 and a blue, 5 loyalty. Spells your opponents cast that target a creature or planeswalker you control cost 2 more to cast. Stacks. -2. Create a 2/2 blue wizard creature token. Draw a card, then discard a card. So essentially, loot. I don't think this is terrible. She has a lower CMC, and that allows you to have a propaganda-like effect-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, propaganda is... Wait, I did that wrong, because I thought propaganda...
Well,
I thought she would...
2.
I mean, it's 2, but the propaganda stops your opponents from like hitting you.
Mm-hmm.
This is just like casting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
she's okay.
Yeah, she's okay. And yeah, she didn't die to Nicol Bolas, which is good because they just introduced this character, and man, that'd be even worse than Ral, where it's like, oh, I'm here, guys, to help you out, and oh, I just died. So I'm glad that she's alive. I think I need to look into the lore more.
I know that she makes it through. I don't know if Ral did or did not. Dak Faden was the one that we know for sure died.
Yeah, sad, man. It feels sad. We'll move on to Ob Nixilis, the Hate Twisted. So there's plenty of Ob Nixilises, and here's one more. It is 3 black, 5 loyalty. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Ob Nixilis, the Hate Twisted, deals 1 damage to that player. -2, destroy target creature. Its controller draws 2 cards. It is 5 mana, and I think it's actually halfway decent because people really like to draw cards in EDH, and this just punishes them for it. And I'm fine with that.
Yeah, this is good for sure in a multiplayer kind of setting. I don't think this will really have any other impact anywhere else. And you can also use the destroy target creature on yourself. Like, so if you have tokens, you can just, sack a token for able to draw 2 cards.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, you can use it on yourself, can't you?
Yeah.
Oh.
But then you won't be the one taking damage either.
Right.
It's just the opponents.
Oh. Okay, that's actually a little bit better. All right. It's pretty decent.
Tybalt, Brackish Instigator. Instigator. 2R, so 2 red. Sorry, 2 and 1 red. 5 loyalty. Your opponents can't gain life is his static ability. His -2 is create a 1/1 red devil creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. So from what we've learned about Standard in one of our past episodes,
we know all about Standard now.
We
after one episode, we know everything.
For maybe the 15 minutes that we talked about it, I don't even think it was that long.
It wasn't. I don't think it was.
So we know that like stopping your opponents from gaining life is kind of a big deal, which is probably one of the reasons why Rampaging Ferocidon was banned. So we'll see if this, gets banned in Standard.
Yeah,
it won't be in EDH for sure.
No, it's I'm glad to see that after the entire fan base complaining and bitching, like, oh, Tybalt is trash. Like, okay, well, here's a halfway decent Tybalt. You fucks, ungrateful bitches. I didn't think we said in the intro that we drink and swear.
We drink and swear.
We drink and swear. So you're welcome.
We're a little off our game because we're right next to each other.
It honestly is throwing me really off. I'm used to like an entirely different setup.
Yeah, same. It's kind of like we're both drinking wine. I'm drinking red wine. Blake's drinking white wine. We didn't want to focus on that too much just because there's so much to talk about in this episode.
Yeah. Shit, man.
All right.
Yeah, so then our next one is Vivian, Champion of the Wilds. It is 2 and a green, 4 loyalty. You may cast creature cards as though they had flash. We've seen that a couple times on other stuff. +1 until your next turn. Up to 1 target creature gains vigilance and reach. -2, look at the top 3 cards of your library. Exile 1 face down and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. As long as it remains exiled, you may look at that card and you may cast it if it's a creature card. Meh.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, like I don't really have too much to say about this. There's a couple cards that give your creatures flash. Maybe you need more redundancy pieces that do that. It gives vigilance and reach. It's very green and a -2 effect that cares about creatures. Yep.
If you have a pretty heavy creature focused deck, like my Jolta, I don't think my Jolta would want to run this, but it gives you like pseudo card advantage.
Yeah, kinda.
Because it's like you exile a card and you're able to look at it all the times.
Yeah. I don't think it'll be very popular, but whatever.
At least not in EDH.
Yeah. We should always just assume we're an EDH podcast. We are biased.
All right, Teo, the Shield Mage. Teo, I also know, is supposed to be kind of like one of the lead characters in the War of the Spark novel that came out. They tried to focus from the perspective of a new Planeswalker, who is Teo.
That's nice.
So, Teo is a 2 and a white, 5 loyalty. You have hexproof, so you, the player, have hexproof. -2, create a 0/3 white wall creature token with Defender. Meh, again. But you have hexproof is nice.
Yeah, like there's a couple cards that give you hexproof. And yeah, the -2 Defender, it might go in Arcades, the Strategist. I think that's all you can really say about this card, though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. It's not like super terrible, but it's all right. I mean, it can protect itself. Like everyone talks about, like, oh, can the Planeswalker protect itself? Like, at least in Super Friends decks, and so it can do that. I don't know. We're gonna move on to Tamio, Collector of Tales. 2 green, blue, 5 loyalty. Spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause you to discard cards or sacrifice permanents. +1, choose a non-land card name, then reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all cards with the chosen name from among them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. -3, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Up until now, I think only Sigarda and Tajuro Preserver have stopped you from being forced to sacrifice permanents. So that's really nice. And this one also prevents you from discarding cards, which in very specific situations is nice, but I really care about the not being forced to sacrifice thing.
Yeah, I don't think this is like the most relevant EDH card that there will be.
Definitely not.
The +1 definitely isn't going to help you at all unless if you know the top cards of your library, because it's not like unless if you have like a Shadowborn Apostles deck, you're only going to like declare one non-land card name and then get one of those 4 cards.
Yeah, there's like a couple ways, like Miri's Guile and like Sylvan Library and Squirrel Rack. Like there's a few ways.
Yeah, and I mean the sorcery Tamio's Epiphany allows you to scry 4, so that can kind of help.
Yeah.
So, all right. Man, I'm talking about all the new characters here. I don't know how that actually happened.
You're the one who wrote these notes. Blame yourself.
Yeah. So, Davriel, Rogue's Shadow Mage, another new character, 2 and a black, 3 loyalty. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, Davriel, Rogue Shadow Mage, deals 2 damage to them. -1, target player discards a card. It seems like it might be tough to have this trigger ability go off in EDH since there is so much card draw, and it's very unlikely that a player will have like 1 or fewer cards in hand. So this card is definitely not EDH relevant.
No, like discard is definitely much more powerful in other formats. Like I know Thoughtseize and other discard effects that show their hand are much more valuable there. So like it is kind of sad because like it's a new character and we don't care about it.
Well, we don't care about it.
Yeah, we don't care about it
in EDH.
Yeah,
this is probably a little more relevant in something else. Yeah. I don't know, actually.
Maybe in the future we'll get a Davriel that we care about in EDH. I'm hoping.
Sure.
Because yeah, you got a book and everything, man. We have Arlen, Voice of the Pack, 4 green, 7 loyalty.
That's pretty high.
It's getting, when the loyalty is higher than the CMC. Okay. Each creature you control that's a wolf or werewolf enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. -2, create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. So, I don't know, like, people, as far as I know, haven't really been asking for, like, it's not like people have been, like, building wolf and werewolf and been like, please give me, like, an amazing planeswalker that synergizes with it. I think that effect has been happening now after the set has come out.
Yeah, I know that getting a good werewolf commander has always been a request from the EDH community.
Yeah.
So if that ever does come around, maybe that is something. I have small predictions that we might get that in the new sets, and it's going to be like a flip planeswalker. Not a flip planeswalker. It'll be a flip legendary creature. But so, yeah, otherwise, unless if you are running a wolf tribal deck, which I am actually now going to build for the green-white card in the legendary creatures that we'll talk about.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that.
So this card would be good in there because it's also important to note that when you create the 2/2 green wolf creature token with the -2 ability, it'll enter with the additional +1/+1. But when Arlen leaves, it doesn't. That doesn't like get rid of the +1/+1.
+1/+1 counters stay on them.
It stays on them. It's not like, oh, Arlen gives +1/+1s until she leaves the battlefield,
which is nice.
Yeah, so you're -2, create a 3/3 green creature wolf. You do that 3 times, you can get 3/3 green wolf creature tokens if no one does anything to you.
Ow!
Wolf child.
That's my sad wolf noise. Yeah. All right. Oh gosh, I did not practice this name.
This is my turn.
Oh, is it? All right.
I don't even know, but I actually don't. This is one of the Chinese planeswalkers that came out in the Earth. It came out in the. It was an exclusive to. It wasn't exclusive, but it was like a global planeswalker deck thing that they did, where they created planeswalkers based off of, Chinese traditions. Jiang Yangu, Wildcrafter.
We apologize. Yeah.
We're really sorry if we butchered that. 2 green, 3 loyalty. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has tap, add 1 mana of any color. -1, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. I would consider throwing this in my Jolta deck because it's good ramp and it makes your creatures bigger. But I don't know. I feel like this card's only good in specific situations like that. It's not like this is going to be a staple to green EDH decks.
Yeah, it definitely goes more in like the subcategory of like specifically +1/+1 counter decks like Rishkar and that sort of stuff. Where like, okay, all these +1/+1 counters you've been putting on creatures, now they're like Cryptolith, right? And they're tapping for mana, and that's actually pretty decent. Yeah. So that's how I see it. All right, we have Domri, Anarch of Bolas. It is 1 red-green, 3 loyalty. Creatures you control get +1, +0. The +1, add green or red. Creature spells you cast this turn can't be countered. -2, target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. It's alright. Like, it kind of just reminds me of like a cheaper, worse Spellbreaker Behemoth. It's something that like prevents your future stuff from being countered.
We got a very similar Domri in the Ravnica Allegiance. It's good at mana fixing, and cannot be countered is always nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's alright.
It's alright. I guess the fact that it's the creature spells you cast this turn can't be countered is the +1 and not the minus ability. That's probably a lot better too, because that allows you to
at least keep it alive.
Right. You're not like it's one of the rare planeswalkers where you have like options. You don't just have your minus ability.
Going down.
All right. So Sorin, Vengeful Bloodlord. 2 white/black, 4 loyalty. Static ability: as long as it's your turn, creatures and planeswalkers you control have lifelink. +2, Sorin deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. -X, return target creature card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature is a vampire in addition to its other types. I think this is good, at least for a vampire deck.
You think so, just because you're giving your vampires lifelink?
Yes.
Maybe.
And it just synergizes with other vampire spells you have. Well, no, maybe not. I guess if you're doing the -X to bring it back, and if it's already a vampire, just making it an additional vampire doesn't do anything.
I just want to know how he got out of the fucking rock.
Well, I'm going to talk about that. But
Oh, yeah?
do Nahiri Storm of the Stone first.
All right. I actually don't know, so I'm excited. All right, Nahiri Storm of the Stone. Oh, did she erode the stone? Okay. 2 and Boros. So 4 CMC, 6 loyalty. As long as it's your turn, creatures you control have first strike, and equip abilities you activate cost 1 less to activate. -X, Nahiri deals X damage to target tapped creature. Yeah, I don't have too much to say about this. It's, like, I guess reducing equip is nice. It's not the most powerful thing. I don't know, a lot of people do it. Yeah.
I don't think the -X is also that good either. Just because, like, maybe you can get rid of one big thing, but once she ticks herself down, there's no way that she's getting herself back up to, like, charge herself again.
It's like a one shot if you do the minus at all.
Correct.
It's pretty situational.
All right. So we haven't talked about Lauren quite a bit. So this is a very relevant storyline. But Soren and Nahiri were once very good friends. They helped trap the Eldrazi with Ugin. And shortly after they had been freed, the Eldrazi, Nahiri went to find Ugin and Soren. Ugin was in a coma from losing a fight with Nicol Bolas. And when Nahiri went to confront Soren, he put Nahiri into the Hell Vault with a bunch of demons. Because Soren didn't want none of that shit. So hundreds of years pass and Nahiri becomes free after the Hell Vault is destroyed. And Nahiri and Soren do battle again. Soren loses this time, is instead put into a rock where he has to watch his homeworld of Innistrad be overrun and destroyed. So it isn't actually clear how Soren gets freed from his rock prison. Not at least from the cards, or you'd probably have to read the War of the Spark novel. But so when they both show up on Ravnica to stop Nicol Bolas, instead that they just see each other and then they just kind of say fuck it and they just start fighting each other. They don't actually like put aside their differences for a second.
I feel like this is like a little bit kind of like us, where like we just see each other after all this time and we're like, oh, fuck this guy. Just target him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
We'll find out how Soren got out of the rock eventually.
I hope so. Alright, so then we have a new Teferi, Time Raveler. It is 1 white-blue for loyalty. Each opponent can cast spells only any time they could cast a sorcery. +1, until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. -3, return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand, draw a card. So really, I'm just thinking about the static ability and the fact that it increases the knowledge pool, like Teferi lock, that exists.
Can you explain that a little more? Because I don't know what you're talking about.
Alright, so like there have been like the older Teferi also says each opponent, or something along the lines of each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast at sorcery speed. And there's also knowledge pool, which is an artifact, and knowledge pool kind of messes with cards to where like they have to be played while cards are on the stack, meaning they're played at instant speed. So with Teferi, well, you try to cast something and then it goes under knowledge pool and it's cast at instant speed, but then Teferi's like, no, you can only cast stuff at sorcery speed. So you're fine, and all your opponents are locked out of the game from casting spells, except for their commander, I believe. And yeah, it's bullshit.
Well, thankfully none of my friends play with that.
Oh.
So
Should I make it?
shut up. Alright, next we got a Johnny the Great-Hearted. 2 green and a white. Comes in with 5 loyalty. Static ability, creatures you control have vigilance. +1, you gain 3 life. -2, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and a loyalty counter on each other planeswalker you control. So the -2 is very nice. It's almost like a pseudo proliferate, except it's just for Planeswalkers. So it can definitely go into a Super Friends type deck, and the Vigilance ability is relevant if you are running creatures, but then probably not.
Yeah, in my opinion, this is only good in Super Friends decks because of the -2, and they're like, you don't really care about the static or the +1. It's only for the -2, and that's the only redeeming quality about this card. Again, it's like WotC really has favorite Planeswalkers, like the Tezzerets and the Karns, and poor Ajani. Like, in my opinion, most of the Ajanis are bad, and this is the one redeeming quality is the -2. All right, so we have Angrath, Captain of Chaos, 2 and Rakdos. So 4 CMC, 5 loyalty. Creatures you control have menace, -2, amass 2. This is just bad. It's trash. I don't care about it.
Yeah. Sorry, Angrath. Amass, though, we didn't talk about this earlier because it's not as relevant in a lot of these new Planeswalkers, but Amass is the second keyword ability that shows up on a lot of the cards. So there's Proliferate and Amass. And Amass is just, you're able to create a zombie army token and then put +1/+1 counters on it for however much you're amassing. So if you amass 2, you create a zombie token army, and then you give it +1/+, you give it +2/+2 because you amass 2. So yeah, it's okay. Creatures you control have menace.
We don't care.
Unless if you really are running like some kind of creature heavy deck.
We don't care.
Yeah.
No.
Kaya, Bane of the Dead. 3 Orzhov. So 6 CMC total. 7 loyalty. Your opponents and permanents you control. Your opponents and permanents your opponents control with hexproof can be the targets of spells and abilities you control as if they didn't have hexproof. -3, exile target creature. Now I want to say that this is probably a lot better than the last Kaya we got in Ravnica Allegiance. And what's really nice too is that her static ability isn't just on your turn, but it's continuous, which would even allow your opponents to take advantage of this.
Yeah, it's nice. It's kind of like Arcane Lighthouse and Glaring Spotlight, where it just turns off hexproof. It does not turn off Shroud, which you also see a lot in EDH. But it's halfway decent, and it has 7 loyalty, so it's like semi-decent, like decently hard to kill. So I don't know. It's all right. Yeah. Then we have Curator, Behemoth Beckoner, 2 and Simic. It is 7 loyalty. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. -1, tap target permanent.
Untap.
Yes, untap target permanent. Yes. This is actually like kind of nice just because of the static. It's pretty easy in EDH to continuously cast creatures that have power 4 or greater and just draw a bunch of cards.
Yeah, the triggered ability reminds me of Kindred Discovery, which was an enchantment that allowed you to draw a card whenever a large creature enters the battlefield. So she'll have plenty of loyalty to keep herself alive for a turn or two, especially if she's then able to untap a creature that just attacked and then help protect her post-combat.
Oh, I didn't even think about that, yeah.
Gotta think, Blake.
I'm not good at thinking, man. I'm all about my list.
Shut up. All right. We're definitely more than halfway. All right, Jaya. Venerated Fire Mage, 4 and a red, 5 loyalty. If another red source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much damage +1 to that permanent or player instead. -2, Jaya Venerated Fire Mage deals 2 damage to any target. So she doesn't synergize with herself, which is okay. Seems fine if you're trying to burn an opponent, but that's not the most relevant strategy in EDH.
Yeah, please, for the love of God, do not put this in your like burn deck in EDH. Everyone's at 40 life. It's not enough value. Just don't do it. Please don't hurt me. Like if I see you playing this, I'm just gonna have like a heart attack.
You know, I'd actually want to run this in Perforos. Because that's going to be like a pseudo burn.
I feel like you can do better. Guy, I feel like you can do better.
Oh, you touched me.
There, it finally happened.
Alright, moving on.
Yeah. We have Quatli, Sun's Heart, 2 and Orzhov.
No, that's
2 and
Selesnya.
Selesnya, yeah. I've had a bit to drink. It is 7 loyalty. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. -3, you gain life equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control. Again, like maybe it's good in Arcades where you have high toughness creatures, or a Duran, the Siege Tower deck that really cares about having high toughness things. Like it's basically a replacement for Doran, but those are the only 2 hyper-specific situations that I see this card being used in.
Do you want to run this in your Doran deck?
Well, I also like built that thing for like $30 because it's like
this isn't one that's going to be that expensive. Like I bet this is going to be maybe at most $1.
It's one of those decks where it's like I didn't put money into it. Why am I going to put money into it now?
Okay.
So I'm probably not, even though I probably should.
All right. Ashiok, Dream Renderer, 1 Dimir, 3 CMC total, 5 loyalty. Spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their library. Already fuck you. -1, target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard, then exile each opponent's graveyard. So, I mean, in my opinion, this might be the best uncommon Planeswalker.
I don't know, as if you've ever played against like Stranglehold or an even Mind Sensor, just things that really restrict your opponent from searching their libraries. Like opponents really, just players in general in EDH really like to search their library all the time. So like you would be amazed how much work this does, and the fact that this can come down, like it costs 3 CMC, it has 5 loyalty, so it's relatively hard to kill early game, and I'm very happy with this. I might actually buy this.
Yeah.
So, a character you really like, Guy.
I do like this guy.
Yeah, he's swole. We have Sarkhan the Masterless. It is 3 red, 5 loyalty. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, each dragon you control does 1 point of damage to that creature. +1 until end of turn, each planeswalker you control becomes a 4/4 red dragon and gains flying. -3, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. So Sarkhan just really loves dragons so much that he just wants to become one.
Yeah. And that's definitely been something we've seen before, is Sarkhan turning himself into a dragon. But now he's just like, alright, everyone's gonna be a dragon.
All of you are gonna stoop down to my level.
Yeah. So, I mean, this seems pretty decent in a dragon deck, though that would make his +1 a little less powered, since he's probably only going to turn himself into a dragon.
Yeah.
And so, if you're running like a Planeswalker type deck, then you got tons of dragons. But if you have already a dedicated dragon deck, it's kind of like, eh.
Yeah, and I don't know how rulings work if like they become dragons, but do they like still retain their like active abilities?
They would still retain their Planeswalker abilities.
Yeah, that's weird. That's so weird.
Or actually, I don't think they would, because most of the time, especially on like the Gideon Planeswalkers that you see, it has to specifically call out that they're a Planeswalker still. So like Gideon will be like, Gideon becomes a 4/4 human creature, and then it's
assumed that he loses the.
But most of the time it'll say like, but he's still a Planeswalker in addition to being a creature. So this is a little tricky. But I mean, if you are going to use the +1, then I think you just use this +1 at the end.
Yeah, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Ooh. This is the one that I'm most excited for. One of them. Narset, Parter of Veils. 1 blue, 5 loyalty. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. -2. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature and non-land card from among them and put 1 into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any random order. I think everyone has already made the connection that this is pretty much Leovold.
It's half of Leovold.
It is half of Leovold. So Leovold being the legendary elf advisor who
was banned pretty much instantly.
Legendary creature, so he could be your commander. Narset is a little more balanced where she's a planeswalker, so she can't be your commander. And you can lock out your opponents the same way that you could with Leovold, though. And I'd say this is maybe a little better since you can target your attacks on Narset and it cannot be your planeswalkers. I'm considering running this. I definitely already have bought my Teferi's puzzle box. I can't build my Leovold deck, so this is probably the closest I'm ever going to get.
Yeah. This is definitely one of the strongest planeswalkers for EDH, and I am also just kind of wondering why Narset keeps slowly losing all of these colors. Like, she was Jeskai, and then she was white and blue, and now she's just blue.
Azorius?
Yeah.
Well, part of the story is so...
Do you know?
Well, yes, because Narset when she was a legendary human creature, that was when they had this alternate future that was changed due to Sarkhan going back in time and saving a bunch of dragons on his homeworld. And one of the things that kind of like altered the future was then Narset ended up becoming a planeswalker instead of becoming this legendary human creature.
Oh.
So part of it, I think, is that she changed who she was from the alternate future to the future that we ended up with. And now, I don't know why she lost white, though. It seems odd, but okay.
Oh. I had no clue. Yeah, now we have Saheeli, Sublime Artificer. It is 1,
Is it?
Yes. 1 is it. So 3 CMC, 5 loyalty. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. -2, target artifact you control becomes a copy of another target artifact or creature you control until end of turn, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. I didn't realize this at first, but this is actually like pretty decent. Like, you're just pumping out tons of 1/1s that can then turn into other stuff if you build the right deck around it.
Right, so she could turn the 1/1s that you create into Blightsteel Colossus, or she could just drop your 0 CMC artifacts and turn those into Blightsteel Colossus if you have those out. So yeah, this is some of these uncommons have actually been kind of powerful. It's like we just talked about Narset, Saheeli, Kiora. Definitely, I mean, some of them have been a lot more. The static ability has definitely made Planeswalkers a little more relevant to the EDH because it's a pseudo enchantment-like effect.
It's like a much easier to kill enchantment.
Right. It's almost what Eminence should have been in a way.
Ooh, hot take.
All right. Dovin, Hand of Control, 2 and Azorius, so 3 CMC total. 5 loyalty. Artifact, instant, and sorcery spells your opponent's cast cost 1 more to cast. -1 until your next turn. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to and dealt by target permanent an opponent controls. So it's a lot better than the first Dovin we saw as well.
Yes.
And I think that's partly because of his static ability. He can be like a very early taxing card since he's only 3 mana. probably like a Grand Arbiter deck would want to run this.
Yeah, he's like pretty easy to put out. Yeah, it's just like a taxing effect, man. It's like it goes in like any deck that's looking to tax your opponent. That's all I can really say. It can neutralize like a really big threat and like prevent it from like losing its loyalty, I believe. Like,
right.
Yeah. So it kind of protects itself, kind of. It's all right. We have Chandra, Fire Artisan. 2 red, 4 loyalty. Whenever 1 or more loyalty counters are removed from Chandra, she deals that much damage to target opponent or planeswalker. +1, exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. -7, exile the top 7 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. I doubt you're ever going to get the -7.
Not an EDH.
No. And I don't know. The +1s, I don't know. It's like, it's very red. It's like exile, and you might be able to cast it.
Yeah. I definitely thought this was a lot better because when I read it, I first read it as when loyalty counters are added to Chandra. Though I guess this also does matter when she's dealt damage. So if you do 3 damage to her, then it does 3 damage to a creature or player.
It can, yes.
No, to an opponent or planeswalker.
Yeah.
Not
so
creature.
you can't even be like, oh, you killed me, creature. I can kill you back, maybe. You can't even do that because it has to be the opponent or planeswalker.
Well, yeah, but if you get her up to like +5, +6, you can then do 6 damage to your opponent if they kill her in 1 turn.
That's still trash for me.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So some of the lore, again, it's been a while. So a lot of these planeswalkers have just kind of been fighting Nicol Bolas's army, and so as we've mentioned, the Immortal Sun is being held by Dovin, who is the Azorius planeswalker we just talked about, and he's watching it in the Towers of Ravnica, far away from the battle. And so Vraska works with Saheeli and Chandra to seek out the Immortal Sun, because Vraska knows that this is why planeswalkers aren't able to flee. And so Saheeli creates some of her artifacts, and those go and find the Immortal Sun. And then Chandra goes to confront Dovin. They fight each other, and Chandra then destroys the Immortal Sun and blinds Dovin.
Oh, he's blind now?
Dovin is blind.
Oh, man, I need to learn lore.
Yeah, I think it's Chandra's Triumph, you see like Chandra, and then you see Dovin in the background just like engulfed in flames. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, oof. Rip Dovin. He's still alive. He's fine. He's just a little bit damaged. All right, we have Nissa, who shakes the world. 3 green, 5 loyalty. Whenever you tap a forest for mana, add an additional green. All right, that's pretty decent. +1, put 3 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target non-creature land you control. Untap it. It becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with vigilance and haste. It's still a land. -8, you get an emblem. Ooh, emblem. With lands you control, have indestructible. Search your library for any number of forest cards, put them into play tapped, then shuffle your library. Yeah.
In my opinion, this is the second most wanted planeswalker that I want. So Jace was the first one, Nissa is the second. And this is definitely because I want to run her in Jolta, because I think the +1 is very relevant, where it just creates like 5 mana for me essentially. So it creates a 3/3 forest, so that's already -3 from Jolta's effect, and then it's tapping for 2 mana, so that's 5 mana in a way to get Jolta out. So it's a huge ramp for that deck, at least.
It makes sense because it's a mono green deck. You would want to run this in a mono green deck that has tons of forests.
Right. Definitely this card is for mono green.
Yeah, like I don't think, even if you have a 2-color deck where you like make sure that tons of your lands also count as forests, like the very specific lands, Like, I don't think you can make it work in a 2-color deck to make this really worth it.
And it almost had to also be creature focused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
The emblem's really nice, but it's... Yeah.
The likelihood of actually getting to unless if you have these 3/3 elemental creature tokens that are able to protect her, because she's only 3 away from getting to the -8. But
yeah, you might be, if you're mono green, you might actually have enough creature to just to block it to actually.
Right. It's a
dream.
It's a dream.
It's a difficult dream to achieve. We will achieve it one day.
All right. Time for Liliana, Dreadhorde.
Yes.
That was really loud.
It was.
All right, Liliana, Dreadhorde General, one of the members of the Gatewatch. So 4 black. She comes in with 6 loyalty. Static ability: whenever a creature you control dies, draw a card. +1, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. -4, each player sacrifices 2 creatures. -9, each opponent chooses a permanent they control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest. So it definitely synergizes it with itself, since you either can create a bunch of tokens and then board wipe, like Decree of Pain, card draw, or you can do it a little quicker and then just have every player sacrifice 2 creatures and you can get a little card draw. So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a bit high for... It's 6 CMC. It's a bit high for a Planeswalker,
But, like, I think just for the static alone, it's probably worth it to run in the certain deck that really can sacrifice creatures, especially if you can do sack loops. Like, you're just gonna draw your... If you can get into an infinite sack loop, you can just draw your entire library. Yeah.
So we've all seen the trailer at this point, but Liliana is leading Nicol Bolas's army of the dead, since she is the most powerful necromancer in the multiverse. Liliana, however, is not meant to be a bad character. She is part of the Gatewatch, but she's only under Nicol Bolas's control because she made a pact with 4 demons in her past to grant her eternal youth. But from being from this pact, she was consumed by their fear and ultimately hunted, and then she ultimately hunted them down with the Gatewatch because she couldn't kill her demons. She had to have other people do it, and this then led Liliana to just kind of navigate the Gatewatch until she was free from her contract. So after several years and killing all of the 4 demons, the last one being Belzenlock, who was on Dominaria, Liliana thought she had been freed from her deal, but the contract that had been arranged ultimately then fell onto the broker of the deal, who was Nicol Bolas. So once Belzenlock was dead, Liliana was swept away from Bolas and taken to Amonkhet to raise Bolas's army and then lead it into Ravnica. So after seeing the events of the war unfold on Ravnica, towards the end, Liliana, for the first time in her life, makes a sacrifice for the greater good of everyone and turns the army of the dead onto Bolas instead of killing all of the other Planeswalkers. So then Bolas uses the power that he has from the deal to then kill Liliana.
It's so sad. Yeah.
It is very sad. If you've watched the trailer, it's very emotional.
Got me, man. Brought me back to like the middle school days of Lincoln Park.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that brings us to, of course, the man himself, Gideon Blackblade. He's 1 white, 4 loyalty. As long as it's your turn, Gideon Blackblade is a 4/4 human soldier creature with indestructible that's still a planeswalker. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to Gideon during your turn. +1 up to 1 other target creature you control gains of your choice vigilance, lifelink, or indestructible until end of turn. And -6, exile target non-land permanent. He's just like the goodest guy ever, right?
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good body. If he has a good body, but he's a good body if nothing else. If you're going to turn him into a creature, and he has indestructible.
Gideons have always been much more relevant in like other formats, but yeah, still.
Yeah, so Gideon is sort of the Hercules or Superman of the MTG. He always does what is best for everyone. That's why he's in the white. So like Superman, Gideon is indestructible. He was granted this power when he was much younger by the gods of Theros, after making it out of alive from a war that he served when he was very young. Since then, Gideon has served as a protector to all and is part of the Gatewatch. He is now wielding the Black Blade, which references the Black Blade Reforged, which is a legendary artifact that he used to kill Belzenlok, which was one of Liliana's demons on Dominaria. So now, on Ravnica, Gideon calls upon the help of the Pegasus and rides into battle to slay Nicol Bolas, but is thwarted by the white god of Amonkhet Oketra. And as he begins to fall, he's saved by Rakdos, the demon of the Rakdos Guild, and is flown over to Nicol Bolas. And as Gideon jumps off Rakdos to deliver a final blow to Nicol Bolas swipes him down and destroys the Black Blade.
Ooh.
So Gideon's left defenseless, and Liliana is about to give her life. And as Nicol Bolas is burning her alive, Gideon walks over to her and transfers his power of immortality onto Liliana. And so now Liliana is able to control the Armory of the Dead instead of dying. And then ultimately, Gideon gives his life and dies instead.
Damn.
So it's pretty heavy. Alright, so we got
The final card?
final two.
Oh yes, the final two.
Alright, so the big bad that we've been talking about the whole time, Nicol Bolas, Dragon God. Blue, black, 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 red. 4 loyalty. His static ability is Nicol Bolas, Dragon God, has all loyalty abilities of all other Planeswalkers on the battlefield. +1, you draw a card. Each opponent exiles a card from their hand or permanent you control. -3, destroy target creature or Planeswalker. -8, each opponent who doesn't control a legendary creature or Planeswalker loses the game. Seems kind of busted, especially if you do run a Super Friends deck that can run all the colors, and then you have Doubling Season out. That's cast -8 ultimate. Who doesn't have a legendary creature or Planeswalker? You lose.
Yeah, well, in EDH, it's sort of like, I hope you have your commander out, otherwise you're probably gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not even like the -8 is really good, because he has all loyalty abilities of all other Planeswalkers on the battlefield. So if your pot of 4, your opponents could have Planeswalkers, so Nicol Bolas can use one of those abilities. The +1 is nice. You draw a card and everyone has to exile a card from their hand or permanent.
Pretty strong.
-3 is still good. Destroy target creature or Planeswalker. Probably, and it's regardless of the loyalty counters on that Planeswalker. So this definitely fits into the flavor of being godlike.
It's pretty strong. Like, strong static, pretty strong, all 3 abilities. Like, I don't know. And, like, I know you can do a whole bunch of shenanigans with the static ability, but, like, I honestly feel like in most situations, it's still going to be worth your while and time and cards to, like, just somehow get it to 8 loyalty or more and then just -8 it right away and kill it, like, if not everybody, 1 or 2 players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright. Last Planeswalker.
Alright, we have Ugin the Ineffable. 6 mana, 4 loyalty. Colorless spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. +1, exile the top card of your library face down and look at it. Create a 2/2 colorless spirit creature token. Then when that token leaves the battlefield, put the exiled card into your hand. -3, destroy target permanent that's one or more colors. I don't know. You should talk about this first.
It's definitely not as good as the OG Ugin. This is the first Ugin that we've seen since the OG Ugin. Yeah, it's been quite a while. Ugin is the twin brother to Nicol Bolas. I think this card's okay. Like, maybe in a casual Eldrazi deck, you would want to run this.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not the hypest about this card. Like, even if because you're probably running this in a colorless deck to really make use of that static ability. And even then, it's like colorless decks can make so much mana by turn 6, which in theory you're playing this on, that it's like you really don't care about the cost reduction anymore. You're really more like by turn 6 through 8 you can make 25 to 100 mana if you build the deck right, and like at that point you don't care about cost reducing stuff by 2 mana. And like so I only really see this being relevant like for the -3 and like mono black or mono red EDH decks.
Yeah.
For being able to deal with permanents that they can't control.
Right.
Yeah.
So Ugin shows up towards the end after Nicol Bolas is about to become pretty much the ultimate god, and Ugin essentially sends Nicol Bolas to the Meditation Realm, which is a plane that has almost nothing in it, and Ugin traps himself and Nicol Bolas into the Meditation Realm.
Shadow Realm.
Pretty much. And they are meant to spend all of eternity there. And Ugin also strips away Nicol Bolas' name. So now Nicol Bolas is just Bolas. That's it. That's what he did. Yeah.
So like that would just be like, just okay.
It's weird.
Okay.
I don't know what the name if the name gave Nicol Bolas his power, but the ending of the lore is a little iffy, so it's not as dramatic as we'd like it to be right now, just because this book only came out I think a day or two ago.
Well, he's not dead, so maybe in like another 25 years he'll come back.
I'm sure that they'll focus on a different bad guy for a while.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so we just reviewed 37 Planeswalkers. Quick, but Blake, given gun to head, who do you think's the best one?
Narset.
Narset?
Narset.
For EDH, I'd probably say Narset or Ral.
Yeah.
Those two, I mean, Tezzeret's definitely
Strong.
up there.
Yeah.
Nicol Bolas, I think, is just...
But both of them within it, like Narset and Ral, in conjunction with the right other card, can just either lock someone out or go infinite and win.
Right.
Yeah.
It's... Like, a lot of these are very situational cards, but I think those two have the best potential of being able to pull off their combos a lot easier.
And even if they don't combo, they're just like straight value cards.
Right, and they're not even that high as CMC cards.
Right. They're like pretty low CMC, so you can play them early or late game. You can play them whenever, pretty much.
Alright, so strongest Planeswalker, which one's the one that you want the most?
I probably will fork over the money for a Tezzeret.
Okay.
Yeah, because I want that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a deck for Tezzeret, but I feel like that will become expensive, so I might have to buy one.
You bought the other buy a box promo, Nexus of Fate.
Yeah, but like that, I didn't end up using that.
Yeah.
So, alright. So we're at the end of the episode. We got part 2 coming your way very shortly. Normally at the end of our episodes, especially on YouTube, we like to include a meme. So if you just happen to be listening to this podcast on iTunes or Spotify, you don't get to see that meme. You just kind of hear this maybe random noises at the end, and you're like, okay.
This is weird.
So on our YouTube videos, they often correlate with a meme that we created. But since Blake and I are together, we thought we'd mix it up a little. And we each are going to tell a quick little story about our friendship.
Yeah.
Just to make it,
interesting.
a little more interesting,
You
and
get to know us better.
Get to know us better.
I'm sure they're dying for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blake, what do you want to say?
So can I tell the story of like when I first visited you, and this was when like you realized you didn't.
Yeah.
Before okay, so I visited Guy a couple years ago. After a while, this was before I think it was after that night he realized alcohol isn't like really the best for me. I'm not a heavy drinker, so I go and visit him, and we start playing Smash, and then we're like, let's take a shot every time one of us loses. And the only thing in the house was peach schnapps because we were underage, and we're like, okay, this is the one thing we can find. We like start doing that, and then I think there were like 3 iconic moments. Like at one point in the night, I caught you. I came back downstairs, and you were just like face planted into the like ass of the couch. And I'm like, you good guy? And then you're like, yeah. And then later that night, you ended up throwing up mostly everything.
Yeah, I think there was probably only 2 or 3 more times after that where I really decided that I'm not a heavy drinker. I don't want to be a heavy drinker.
It's good.
But the occasion for you visiting me called for it.
Yeah.
Though probably wasn't the smartest idea to just be like, oh, let's play a 2-minute game of Smash to decide who takes a shot. Because regardless, that's like...
It's going to be fast.
That's going to be fast.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot of alcohol in your system very quickly.
It was fun though, right?
No. Alright, my story about Blake.
Oh no.
Well, no, this one actually is good for you.
Oh,
like,
yeah?
I'm not trying to embarrass you right now.
Oh, okay. I was going to embarrass you straight off the bat, so that's why I told that story.
Alright, my story was, so Blake and I, junior year of high school, we ran a race together, and this race had these spectators who were on the girls cross country team from a rival high school of ours. And so Blake and I did fairly well. We came in 2nd and 3rd respectively. And at the end of the race, we're just kind of like sitting, talking, and 2 of the girls come up to us, and I shit you not, but both of them just kind of were like, hey, we were talking and we were wondering if we could get your number. And they weren't talking to me, they were talking to Blake. And Blake was like, I don't have a cell phone. And they were like, oh, okay. Well, do you have a Facebook? Blake was like, no.
Deadpan.
And Blake just kind of deadpanned them and, you know, refused to like give out his information while I'm just kind of like sitting there like, Jesus Christ. And so then they looked at me and they're like, well, what about you, I guess? And then I was like, hell yeah, I got a phone. And so they ended up walking away. And then my mom came over to me and she was like, oh, we overheard those girls talking about you boys. And they definitely thought Blake was the cuter boy. And I was like, Mom, I would have been able to tell you that from how this interaction just went. All right. Thank you for listening. We are on Spotify, iTunes. Follow us on Twitter. Watch us on YouTube. We got this part 1 Planeswalker done. We are going to take a very short break, and then we are just going to immediately record part 2.
Immediately dive right into part 2.
All right.
We're going to get even more drunk. Let's go.
All right. Thank you, and good night. Peace.
Peace out.